I know you're very,
Yeah,
nervous talking to me
I know.
because I'm very imposing.
I am. I am. So, all right. Are we good? Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Highlights of My Mediocre Career. This is comic Chip Ambrogio, where I talk to people I've met in my 24 years in stand up, talk to them about their careers, and in the end, ask them where I went wrong. So, today's guest is a good friend of mine. He's a comic, he is a TV host, a former sportscaster. Let's welcome Bill Boronkay. Bill, welcome to My Mediocre Career.
Listen, I don't want to get into a competitive thing, but I could out mediocre you in different careers.
Well, look, if we're going to fight over apathy and lack of support, we could be on this all day. And
Listen, I have a very busy schedule. I got to vacuum later.
okay, all right. So he, we are doing this in the middle of the pandemic, and this is like week 5 of the quarantine. And I see, Bill, you cut your own hair. I'm sorry about that. So anyway, let's talk about when we first met. We met at a crappy gig in Fairfield,
Yeah,
Connecticut, right? Do you remember what the name of the place was?
it was something bear, Peachy
Right.
Bear or something. I don't know. But what's
And
funny is,
anytime you see like a hideous bear out front of a place, you know it's not good.
and I
You
do
were
so
saying?
much research before a gig that when I saw the bear out front, I'm like, why do they have a bear? That's weird. Totally forgetting the name of the place. Took me a while to piece it together.
And I remember when I walked in, the guys were setting up, and they were very nice people. It was this guy with his girlfriend, right? And
Yep.
anytime like the people setting up are like nice and treat you anyway respectfully, you know it's going to be a hell gig, you know, because
I think
they
are there some hidden childhood issues that we need to delve into with this?
again we only have about 20 to 30 minutes, Bill. So, but I remember going in and it was booked through this company, and we're not going to name who the booking company was because as comics, you know, I think I saw it in Platoon when they said, "Hey, we're grunts and we can handle anything," and that's in comedy. You will take whatever gig from whatever company that books you, even though you know you're walking into like an ambush. So anyway, the company is famous for telling the client that they booked this comic and then at the last minute calling and saying, hey, there was a problem and we had to replace them. And it's usually like someone in their family dies or something happens. And I remember seeing on the beautiful, black and white flyer that they had taped to the front door that this guy that I hadn't worked with in a long time and was a good friend of mine, I hadn't seen in a while, was going to be on the show. And I'm like, oh, great. And I walk in and the guy goes, bad news. I'm like, what happened? He goes, Shorty's mom passed away. And I'm like, Shorty's mom died like 10 years ago, but I'm not going to say anything about it, right? And then enter you. So take it from there.
Well, to be fair, I have taken gigs from this company that have been like that, and I've also taken some from this company that have been outstanding.
Okay, so
So
so now
now the
I know where
outstanding
you're
ones
going with
didn't
that. You
have the
want to
bear in the front.
right? Okay,
All
you
right.
want to take care of the people that take care of you. Nice job, Bill.
So I show up, meet you, and the couple of things stick out. It's going to start late, which we're used to. And there's a host who's a female. And again, I've never met her, never met you. And she's just stressing out because she has this other show she has to get to. And she kept saying, "Oh, I'm only going to do real little bit of time so I can get to this other show, get to this other." It's like, whatever. Now, it's totally a horrible setup. And if I remember, everyone was eating and they kept saying they wanted us to go on while they eat. And we were like, no, we want to wait.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes up and is dying and naturally goes way longer. And everybody's talking. And then she introduces you and leaves.
Yes.
So you're there to take the bullet. And that's when I'm
Yes.
like, this guy's really funny, and he's not giving in to them.
And you
So,
know, remember what else was going on then? It was the Final Four. All the
oh,
TV sets
that's
were
right.
on, and they were watching the Final Four
Instead of us. Go figure.
instead of us. Yeah.
Uh,
But it
but
actually ended up being better than we thought it was going to be, right?
it was surprisingly fun, which is totally, it shouldn't have been. And I think the highlight of the night, though, besides, of course, meeting you, sir, was on my way home. I stopped at a rest area, Travel Plaza, and I go in, and Tracy Morgan was there in the middle, and this is
Really?
like 11:30 midnight, and people are starting to like surround him and get autograph, and he was eating it up. He was telling stories. I was just like, "Hey, love your work," which I'm not really a big fan, but I thought as I was walking by, he reaches out to shake my hand while he's talking to all these people. I'm like, "Ah, he probably saw me at the Bear." So
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get into your psychology there, Bill, because here it is. You didn't want to insult the Z level booking company. Um, you didn't want to insult the crappy place that we worked, but yet Tracy Morgan, you're going to take down. You're going to take him down.
and it
It's a
was a
good move.
it was a pretty ruthless takedown. Which, if you look at the pattern here, Chip, maybe we're discovering part of the reasons of my mediocre career.
Wow. Well, I'm going to ask you to psychoanalyze me at the end, so let's not jump ahead. All right. So you started as a sportscaster,
I
right?
did.
Tell me about that. Tell us
Actually,
about that.
first I was in radio,
Okay.
and then was finally able to get into TV, and yeah, it was one of those. There's so many similarities because A, everyone tells you you're never going to make it. Uh, B, it's full of rejection. You just have to get used to rejection. And to be honest, I'm horrible at rejection. So I really had two very wise career paths. But yeah, my first job was, well, here was, again, talk about great decisions in your life. Do you know who Tom Brenneman is?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, sportscaster for
Yep.
Fox. Well, he and I graduated high school together.
Wow.
And well, his and so he got a job when I got into the radio station in Cincinnati. He got into one of the TV stations doing sports, and then worked his way up. And then when I wanted to go into TV, he's like, "Come on, we'll talk, whatever." And so he basically set it up with his general manager to interview me. They didn't have a job opening, and the general manager was the most powerful guy in television at that time. He was known as being really nuts, but he was like really powerful. And I had made some audition tapes for weather, thinking, oh, I'll get in weather and then try to, because I know so much about clouds.
Right. Right.
Well, so I'm doing the interview, and fortunately, my girlfriend at the time, before I left, said, "Don't be clever, be yourself." So that was encouraging. So
It's really pumping you up.
I know. So I go in and we're talking, and the guy's trying to scare me to death from going into this. And finally, he said something, I can't remember what it was, and I just reflex said something smart ass to him. And he just stared at me for what felt like forever. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. He laughs and all of a sudden becomes my best buddy.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh, this is cool. And he goes, but he leaves the interview by saying, and he watched the tape and he's like, I like this, whatever. He goes, if you want to go for sports, go for sports. Don't mess with weather. And then he said, but at the same time, our weather situation is not settled here, and I could see you working in. So, being the wise guy that I am, why focus on long term goals when you can go for immediate gratification? So, I'm like, oh, I'm going to keep feeding this guy weather stuff. So then he sets it up for me to go in there and record one at their place with one of the guys that they're going to run out. And as all this stuff's going on, he ends up getting fired and I'm host. So it was starting
Wow.
square one again. Um,
Wow. What did you
yeah.
say to him that was wise ass? Did it become your
I
catchphrase like
can't
they have for the other?
remember. I don't
Yeah.
remember what it was, but there were two things I remember from this interview. One, he grabbed my hair in the back and said, "You're gonna have to cut this." And I'm like,
Wow.
"All right." And it was kind of normal. It didn't feel really, at that point the ice was broken, and it wasn't like this big professional guy. But at the end of the interview, he said this, which I took as a compliment, and everyone wondered why. I said, "You're kind of like." You're kind of ugly, like an ugly puppy, which is kind of cute.
Wow. Did he say that while he was grabbing your hair and closing the door? That sounds like a hashtag how about me moment, you know? What is
And
going
then I
on?
blacked out. I don't remember much after that.
Which brings us to comedy. So, how did you go from sportscasting to comedy?
My sports career actually, like, I went down to Myrtle Beach, an independent station, which was kind of a low budget. It was Carolina Christian Broadcasting, which was kind of like a low budget Jim Tammy
Oh
Faye
my
operation.
God.
Oh yeah, everyone there was a criminal. It was just like the business manager was busted for embezzlement, kept their job. So I'm the business manager. But anyway, it was such a horrible operation. I was able to BS my way from weather into sports, and I started doing sports stuff, and just started sending stuff out, and then finally worked my way up, and then went to Cleveland, Ohio, and then we had a change of management, and I had an audition. ESPN came in second, and then I got this other job working in a production company doing sports shows, which was cool. But finally, I'm like, I always wanted to do comedy. Let me just give it a shot. Take a workshop, and then you start doing it more and more. And finally, you're like, yeah, let me, I don't know, cut my pay in half, you know, move to New York, increase my cost of living 75% and see what happens.
Well, yeah. Well,
I
I
wasn't a
mean,
business major.
well,
So
so you interviewed at ESPN,
I did. I
and
did.
so what was
And
that
I think
interview
you
like?
take too much joy in this. It was actually pretty awesome. Now,
Right.
keep in mind, I'd been sending stuff to ESPN since I worked in Myrtle Beach. So when you're not ready to send stuff and you do. So when I finally got the interview, I went out there and he's like, yeah, I've been watching your stuff for years. And I'm like, do you remember like I sent you stuff from Myrtle Beach? And he just looked at me and smirked. And I'm like, oh, because in one of the things I did in Myrtle Beach was I cut highlights from the Simpsons softball game and I ran those in the sportscast. And if I
Oh,
remember right, I sent that to ESPN. Not sure how I got in the door at that point. But
wow.
anyway, the ESPN thing was really cool. You go in and you interview with the main guy who, fortunately, my agent at the time told me, he's not real warm. That's just the way he is. Don't let it freak you out, because that was exactly it. Not a lot of like eye contact, whatever, just matter of fact.
Wow.
So, so you do an interview with him, you redo a sports center, like 15 minutes of a sports center from the night before. So you record it, try and figure out stuff. You write all these intros, you go in, you go over the tapes so you can do the stuff. And I remember sitting down on the set, and it's pretty intimidating. I mean, this was my lifelong dream, besides being on my mediocre career. Um,
Thank you, Bill.
so you're welcome. What was that thing about not burning bridges and sucking up?
Oh, it's too late
So,
now.
all right, way to hold a grudge. Uh, so I'm sitting there on the Sports Center set, and they're lining up the cameras and everything. And I look down, and I just see in the desk monitor, there I am on the Sports Center set. And it's just like, that is so cool. But all these people watching, is like, hee hee hee. They're like, all right, cut, move them to the Fisher Price set.
That is cool,
So,
though.
oh, it was awesome. And almost to this day, I could remember so much about that sportscast. And I remember feeling like I'm doing really well, falling behind in the NHL highlights, and then catching up on whatever. And it seemed like it went well. Then I go to a couple more interviews, and then you fly home, and that was it. And then, so I was one of four finalists, and the TV station, and I told me, they called me in for a meeting, like the news director, and he's like, we're not going to renew your contract. I'm like, all right. And I remember him telling the one producer was a really good friend of mine. She was pretty high level, and she's like, "He said you took it really well." I'm like, "Oh yeah," because then I cut down to the final two, and I'm sweet, because it was one of those things where, like, right before you did it, you just felt a total feeling of calm, which I've never
Yeah.
felt before, and it was almost like this is meant to be. So everything goes great, whatever. And then I got the call right before I was going on, weeks later, because then they had a hiring freeze. Because Disney, because the mouse wasn't making enough money, so they got to freeze everything.
Right.
Uh, and so months later, finally, I'm checking with my agent. He's like, nothing, nothing, nothing. So I'm about to go on. for a newscast, and my agent calls and said, "Hey, Jay, got the update." I'm like, "Sweet." And he's like, "They offered the other guy." I'm like, and that was it. And so
Wow.
years later, well, maybe a year later, because they wouldn't tell me why I didn't get the job. They're really professional about that, jerks. And I'm thinking, all right, next time they need a dorky white guy, I'm their dude, you know. Uh, and so,
Yeah.
but fortunately, the head guy, the guy who was really uncomfortable, I guess, was my biggest fan. And so he lined up a thing. I did an audition with ESPN Radio. I flew out there for a weekend to do that, which was totally cool. But the problem was everyone freaks you out about how much knowledge you need. And so I studied all this stuff and I was just so like factual, whatever. And I think they were really looking for more of a personality than someone that knows their stuff because everyone does there. So it went okay, but it wasn't outstanding. And then I finally found out the reason I didn't get the gig. They finally told my agent, they said looks are a concern. And I'm like, you flew me out. You knew that. You could have
That's
followed me.
horrible.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
horrible. In this day
well,
and age, we should be able to see past that.
well, it wasn't exactly this day and age, but
Well,
and
even
the funny
way
thing is
back
like, well, wait a minute.
in the
This is the
'70s when
same.
you auditioned, they should have still been able to see
Well,
past that.
I think the best part is like the biggest star there was Chris Berman, who's like the Fred Flintstone of
Oh, I
TV,
know.
and
Like he's
it's
a
like he
fashion
was
plate.
fine.
Yeah, but he had all that rumbling, stumbling, bumbling stuff. Did you have anything like that?
I didn't have any catchphrases. I was just really like really obnoxious, like snide comments everywhere, which was fun.
And you brought that to the stage, which is nice.
I
Which is
know, and I
nice.
get the same reaction.
Yeah. Well.
So,
Oh man. Well, it's like at one time, like you're saying, oh, well, I did this to make less money. I remember when I was in college, I was taking a writing program, and the woman goes, "Oh, you know what we want you to do? We're having a poet come here, and we think that it would be great for you to take the poetry workshop with him." And the guy was a great guy. He ended up being like, his name was Joel Oppenheimer. He was a great guy, and the guy was like 50, but he looked like he was 80 because he was a he was, you know,
I
a
didn't know
recover.
poetry slams age you that bad.
Yeah, it was well, he was a recovering alcoholic. He chain smoked cigarettes in class, but he was like a really nice guy. And I'm thinking, yeah, that would have been a nice path to go into, like poetry. Go into a place where you can even make less money than stand-up comedy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Or otherwise, you could combine it like Nipsey Russell and build the career of making limericks or something like that.
So you declined that, and then his next student was Dice Clay.
And look what happened. Yeah.
Exactly. And he
So,
hasn't aged either.
do you know who the other guy was that got the job when he was down to the last two? Is he a famous sportscaster?
He actually has done very well, and he's still there, John Anderson.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like,
I
he's
would have
better. Yeah,
taken
he is
you over
better looking than
Anderson
me.
any day. I would have taken you over Anderson any day. Much more personality, and I think better looking too. So,
Yeah.
tell us about tell us about your first time on stage, your first stand up.
Well, I took a workshop, like so
Okay.
many people did. It was in Cleveland, Ohio. It was the Cleveland Improv, and it was one of those where they're like, invite all your friends. That the audience is all friends and relatives of the comedians. There are like 10 people in the workshop, and I was like, I'm no. I only invited like just my closest friends, and I was like, look, if this doesn't go well, I tried it, and that was fine. And I don't need to make everyone awkward. If it does go well, I'll do it again. Not a big deal. So I go, and I think I was up ninth and had the set of the night. It couldn't have gone better. I was so excited. And afterwards, the guy that runs it, he's like, Bill, he goes, you can do this. It's going to take a lot of work, but you can do this. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm going to nail this. I'm crushing it. Look at this. And so I didn't sleep for like 2 nights. I was so high on just adrenaline. And then I did an open mic with my buddy who also took it. And he went up and crushed. And I went up there, did the exact same thing, and just ate it hard. And I mean, not a laugh, anything. And you're sweating because you're just like, and then I didn't sleep for like 2, 3 nights because I was so depressed. And then, you start on the same road as everyone else. Have
Right.
some good, have some bad. I went through the stage where uh, no matter what I did, every night I was eating it. It didn't matter what. And I remember my buddies, they're like, after this one show that went great for everyone else, He's like, "Oh man, Matt, you went up. You did great. I did great, Bill. I don't know what the hell you did." And it was just, and you look and you're like, "Why did I keep going?" There was no positive reinforcement at all.
Yeah. Well, it's like that's what happens when you start, right? It's like
Yeah,
then you get to that thing of like, okay, it's 50-50. I'm sucking and I'm okay. And then it goes up. And like you're saying, there's like no positive reinforcement, but you keep going. And I can only thank my family for bringing me up that way. And I was able to take that rejection, you know, since the time I was in kindergarten all the way through. And it helped me push forward in stand up to now be doing a podcast from my basement, which
that's right.
I think it's that kind of fortitude that allows us to keep going despite what everybody's telling us to stop.
It kind of goes with the whole thing where people were like, "Oh, social distancing so hard," or whatever. It's like, ah, my parents never hugged me. It was the greatest gift of all. I got this.
uh, so now, how many years has it been since that first gig?
That workshop was February 27th, 2006.
Wow.
And then you're like, "Oh, I'm up, I did it twice this month."
Yeah.
Thinking it's a big deal, and then finally it starts to click. Like, it's like, "Oh no, you got to keep getting up." And then I think it was December 2014, I think, is when I finally went full time and moved to Jersey.
Wow.
Because even then, the company I was working for, just the greatest people, and I still wonder if I should have left. But I just mentally couldn't do the job anymore. I was just done. But when I was going to leave originally, they said, "What are you?" They called me in their office, said, "What are you going to do for health insurance?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to have to, get on my own." And the boss is like, "If you work 24 hours a week, we can keep you on our insurance."
Wow.
So, yeah, and it was his idea. I mean, how cool is that? So I
That's
worked
very
Monday through
cool.
Wednesday, 9 to 5.
That's
How,
great.
like, the most thoughtful, greatest thing they could have done for me.
Yeah, that is nice.
So,
You don't see
so
that
then you
now.
wonder, like, wow, should I have left? Because, most clubs start on a Thursday.
Yeah.
But it was just mentally, I was checked out. I could not. But I did it that way for a while until I just couldn't do it anymore. So,
Yeah, but that's great. It's like um so you're like on the road all the time. You are on the road every time I I talk to you. You're somewhere. You're here. You're there. And like my thing is, I never really did the road a lot. I always worked the metro area. Once in a while, I'll go someplace and I write and stuff like that. I don't hit the road like you do. So give me like a horrible road story. Like what is a really soul crushing road story for the people that want to get into the business?
well, what I think is really awesome is when you and I met, we would talk about because the whole goal was I wanted to work with City, and you've done that, and you're like, "Oh, I wish I could get on the road." And I think I've totally talked you out of the road just by hearing uh, the profit margins. Like now, being at home, I'm realizing how much money I spend when I work.
Yeah.
So um, boy, there are a lot of really outstanding road gigs. There is this run out. A buddy of mine, he's like, "Come on, you can open for me to get into this place," and it was a run of two one-nighters and one Friday Saturday place, and it was out in Oregon. So we flew and then we rode together, and these are like 6 7 hours in between. Every drive is like that. And the first one is a casino gig, and comedians will know how great those are. Non-comedians, basically, you're just there to fill the time to get people to refuel to go back out to spend more money. So it's a
Right.
strict amount of time for the show, and it's right in this sports bar. Again, don't turn the TVs off. Noise coming from everywhere around you. A friend described it. Oh, the one casino. This wasn't that one, but another casino gig I did because they're so great. It was in the middle of all this stuff, and you hear all the PA going over. So it was basically like doing stand up in an airport. It kind of makes you think of the Spinal Tap thing where they are in
Yeah.
the airline hangar. Same kind of feeling. Uh, Fortunately, I went first, and they expect you to suck, but I did okay. But they're just rude people, and so eat it, and so we're angry, and naturally have a crappy hotel that they say it's not smoking, but there's smoke everywhere. Um, so the next day you get up early, go to the next gig, and it's actually a huge country bar where, and again, telling you, if you have non-comedians watching, they aren't going to enjoy this as much as comedians, but it's another one where, hey, you should have seen the crowd last week.
Oh, they always say stuff like that.
Every time. It's like, oh, yeah, we only have 10 people this week, but last week.
Yeah.
so, so again,
Ah,
it's empty in a huge room. So you know how great that is. And so, again, crappy hotel. And so the next day we go to this other one, and it's in the bottom of a seafood restaurant, a basement. The hotel, I can't remember. It was a really bad chain. And again, just horrible hotel, one show a night. Uh, they have good food, but they don't even give you a meal. They give you a like gift coupon for $10 off. And the cheapest meal is like, it's higher end food. It's a good seafood restaurant. So you're like, even if no matter what you get, you're just losing money. Um, I can't remember if we had a problem with a rental car too. But again, it was, 6, 7, 8 hours in between every gig. And that was like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't know if I don't think I cleared anything.
yeah.
Unfortunately, I was with a friend who was miserable. So, and he's the
So
nicest
that
guy in the
helped you
world.
out.
But when he gets miserable, he gets really dark, which is entertaining. We did another run. It was New Mexico to this bed and breakfast and this really high end country club in Montrose, Colorado. So again, it was a long drive in between. And the fortunate thing was I was opening those, so I went first before everyone got really drunk. So I was having a great time. He was not. And on the drive, you go through. It's kind of like you go through. You go by like Vale and stuff, but on the way up, they have these winding mountain roads that are gorgeous, but they have the suggested speed limit of like 15 and 20. And you're like, shut up. And you're like, oh man, they're serious because you're going to go off a cliff.
Wow.
And naturally, he got car sick, so we had to pull over. And I was so pissed off because if he would have waited like another half mile, we could have pulled into a scenic overlook and I got a great picture of him puking in front of the sign. Just comics are selfish, Chip.
Well, we are. I remember one time going and doing a gig, and the uh, the jewel of the trip was Buffalo. That's how
Yes.
good it was. So, and I forgot where it was. I thought it was someplace just on the border of Canada, and we did this in a bar. Same thing. They don't turn the TVs off, and they had a picture of the kid from Webster up behind the bar. Remember what was that
Emmanuel
guy kid?
Lewis.
Emmanuel Lewis,
I
because
should
I
not
guess
know
he
that.
had grew up there or whatever, and so that was like the big
Wait.
local hero.
Emmanuel Lewis is the town celebrity?
I think he was, yeah. So, and it was like this big. It was like this place of honor behind the bar, and like these rough looking guys were sitting around the bar, and we made a joke about Emmanuel Lewis, and they were gonna kick our asses. It was like, holy shit, And then what happened is, then we made friends with them afterwards because we told them, hey, you know, I met Alex Karras once or whoever else was Susan
Good
Clark
save.
or whoever else was on that show. And so they said, where you boys staying? And we're like, okay, we're staying at the Port Motel. And they all looked at each other. They're like, where you going next? They were like, Buffalo. They're like, just go to Buffalo. And I'm like, what? So we go to the hotel, and of course it's like you're sharing the room. You don't get two rooms, right? So we go, and there's people like, I swear to God, it's like they're like playing banjos and cooking food outside of our door. It was like Deliverance with a coffee maker. And
They
so
seriously had banjos?
they did, and they were playing, and they had like a little fire, and we go into the room. And the other comic is like, where's the remote? That's the first thing he says. I go, they're going to kill us. And you're worried about like, Where's the remote? So we can't find the remote.
No one
He
kills you with a banjo.
he calls the front desk, and the hotel was owned by these Indian people. And as soon as he calls about the remote, the guy comes and says, "You stole the remote." I'm like, "Why would we steal the remote? And then we can't watch our own TV." I'm like, "I don't know. Maybe those fellas out there like fashioned it into a shiv, and they're gonna kill us. I don't know what's going on." But it was like, and then we went to Buffalo, and when we go to Buffalo, we walk in, and it was nicer, and the guy was very nice that ran the place, and he said, "I hope this show is good because if it's not good, I think we're going to close down the place." And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "Because last time," and I forgot, "Oh, you know some comic named Washboat Willie or something?"
Is that real?
Yeah. So he goes, "Well, what happened last time is they had it in it because it's a wedding hall, right? So they also do weddings in addition to shitty comedy shows. So the guy goes, "Well, we had a whole full house last time. And the opening act, this guy, Washboat Willie, apparently nobody knows him, goes, he said something to the woman who was actually going to be the bride in the wedding, and they had a whole table. Something about how her private parts smelled. And I'm saying it as nicely as I can because he didn't say it that way. And
Wait,
the
Washboat
and
Willie didn't keep it clean?
you would think a guy with a name like that, you know, would have some rippy, like like really clever material. But what happened is he said it, and the entire table of 25 got up and left, and they canceled the wedding. Right?
They canceled the
They
wedding?
canceled the wedding that they had
Wow.
booked. So
Oh, they
then
would
what
have never
happens
lasted. They're quick.
is
They
the
have a
guy
quick
goes,
job.
"Yeah, and if they cancel this, I'm the banquet room manager, and I'm probably going to lose my job." And And I go, and so this is just before I'm going on. And I'm like, "Tell me you got 6 kids or something. Make it a little bit harder for me, right?" But luckily, the show went well. And and we went actually out with the audience because the other comic was like, "Hey, these guys got an internet radio show." And I laughed at that. And now look what I'm doing. So anyway, tell me about, off the top of your head, your best gig and your worst gig ever.
Let's go best gig first because that's not as much fun. And
Okay.
I'm sure I'll think of one that was better, but I was doing this gig again with a friend of mine. I was opening for him. And we were doing a run together in the last one I was opening. He lined up the gig and he's like, "It's bad money, but I can give you this, whatever." I'm like, "All right, well, it routes." So it's in this small town in Ohio. And then the guy who booked us is basically tells us it's less money than even he said. And so we're ticked off. And I go on first and I'm doing okay, whatever. But the crowd's rude. There's a drunk girl. Nobody's telling her to shut up. But I do fine. I come off stage and my buddy goes up and so this guy comes up to me out of the audience and he's like, "Hey, we do this theater show. A friend of mine books this theater show. You'd be perfect for it, whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, okay. Well, if it routes." He's like, "No, give me your information. I'll have him." I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool." And, because people say that stuff all the time. So while we're there a little bit later, I get this email, and this guy says it's this thing. They have 4 comedians, and the pay I thought was for all four because you're used to that. No, that pay was just for me to do 30 minutes, and
Wow.
I'm like, I can make this route. It's later. I go and do the gig, and it's this theater in this small town, really cool theater, maybe a thousand people theater and it turns out I already was friends with two of the other comedians that they'd already booked. They just didn't have that fourth slot fit. And they were two guys that helped me when I started. And so it was just, one of those working with friends. Uh, Crowd could not have been any more appreciative. And they just wanted you to keep it somewhat clean. So I did a half hour, sold more shirts and CDs than I've ever sold. And it was
Wow.
just one of those where you're with your buddies, like everything falls into place. Awesome. Which again is not as much funny as the worst gigs. Now there's some competition for the worst gigs. Uh, there was one that just my favorite part. It was the classic "We'll pay you. We can't pay you, but we'll pay you an exposure," We'll put your name on the tickets. We'll do all this stuff. It was for the Cleveland Police Athletic League. And it was in summer, and I didn't want to do it, but I'm like, I was early. I had nothing booked. I'll do it. So it was me and a magician. Magician gets there first, switches the order because he knows he's going to get screwed. So he can go first. And he's a nice dude, but he goes first. Right before they bring me up, the host goes, "Hey, just want to let you know the buffet's open. Here's Bill Boronkay." So everyone just goes, and I'm like, so not only did I not get paid, I got ignored. Uh, but probably my favorite horrible one, I probably already told you this, is I booked a string of prison shows in
I was going to
Pennsylvania.
ask you about that
Yeah,
because you
so
told me, you go, I booked a series of prison shows, and people that aren't comics would understand that, but some comic would be going, "Wow, how did he get that?"
exactly. And here's the stupid thing. I picked up a prison in North Dakota like 2 years ago that routed with all this stuff I was doing that I was terrified, and it was one of the most fun nights of my life. It was just the warden was like, "Yes, you can make fun of me," and he was a real laid back California dude. So and I couldn't decide if he looked like Tom Petty or I went with Macaulay Culkin, which the place exploded, and then everyone's on your side, and it just rolled. And so I'm like, "Oh, prisons, no big deal. It's cool." Well, it wasn't cool, and uh, they paid really well. But the first one I went and I did, and like half the people on the wings like just started talking, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And the people in front were having a ball with me. And so it turns out that afterwards they said, "Yeah, the people inside couldn't hear you because it's in a gym and they only had one speaker and it was direct." I'm like, "All right, I don't feel as bad, but that bummed me out. I wish someone would have said something during the show. I
Right.
wouldn't have used a mic or whatever." And then the shows got progressively worse. And this one I did, the third one, the second one, so the third one, they just were like, "Tell me a joke." And they're just trying to intimidate me. And I'd
Now give
start
me your
something, they're like,
sneakers.
and then so I'm like, I'm trying to turn the tables. I'm like, and everyone has a nickname. So I'm like, "Dude, what's your name?" He said, "They call me Murder." Murder? Why? Why do you think? So I'm like, unpaid parking tickets? I don't know. Uh, But that was the weird thing was that was supposed to be the younger prison of them, a mix, and they were supposed to be the most fun, and they hated me. And
Wow.
so I was like, I had two horrible shows in a row. I have two more left. One is a noon show, a 1 o'clock show, and the other is in the evening. And I'm like, I'm seriously considering quitting at this point. Just like, and then I'm like, no, I'm taking beatings. I'm earning my money. I'm not letting them off the hook for these last two paychecks. So fortunately, I went, and that next one was a blast, and it was cool. But I mean, it was just beat down, and it was like I don't have like in my pocket street. They wanted street jokes. I don't have any, and it was even during that horrible show. I finally turned to the guy in charge. I'm like, "Think we can end it now?" And he's like, "Yes, you should end it now." So,
Because there's guys there like doing like life, and they're like, okay, now this is going to be cruel, unusual if we make you continue. Because as a comic, that's the worst thing when you are not. It's not working. You're like, Jesus Christ, I just want to get off, and then you're like responsible for the time, and
yeah,
you
and you're
can't
like,
get
I'm not
off.
giving them an out. Dude, some of the
Right?
people, I probably told you this, some of the people were getting up to leave.
Wow.
And the only place they can go is back to their cell. And that was a better alternative. And here's the best part, Chip. They had to walk by me to go because the way it's set up, it's like bleachers, and I'm here. The exit's like right next to me. It's like, oh,
Wow.
you get to listen to them make snipe. And I was like, it's not enough toilet wine for this shit. That kind of stuff as they're walking out.
Well, so there's not going to be like a Bill Boronkay live from Folsom Prison, like the
Well,
Johnny Cash album.
and that's what ticked me off because my buddy's like, you got to do a CD and it's like you can do like an album cover like Johnny Cash, and then inside like choking on the cigarette, like you flip it open. And the problem and was you're not allowed to record anything, not even
Okay.
audio. And actually, the one in North Dakota that actually went well a couple years ago, they said they had their own people record it, and they said they would send me a DVD, which they never did because I totally would have tried to turn it into a prison. I think my prison days are over until I finally snap and maybe make a shiv out of remote and take someone out.
Yeah, or have to go to the Port Motel. So,
Yeah. So wait, outside of the Manuel Lewis, do you have a worse gig than that?
uh, I'm trying to think.
See,
I
that's the
mean,
thing is there's so many.
there's so many bad ones. There's so many. I remember my first real road gig was I went to Traverse City, Michigan, and it was on the weekend.
I've been there.
It was on the weekend, and I was working a regular day job then. So I left on Friday, or no, I took Friday off because why stay at a place where you're actually making money? And I drove with somebody, and we were actually did a show at Rascals.
Oh,
Like,
I
remember
heard.
Rascals?
No, I never did Rascals. But was that the one in the bowling alley?
No, Rascals was actually a nice club in West Orange, right?
Oh, okay.
And and so we did that, and then there was some guy in the audience that just said, "Hey, I'm going to this dinner, like that was 15 minutes away from there. Hey, can you two guys come and do like a half an hour, and we can give you each $100?" And I'm like saying to my friend, "We got to go. We're driving like 15 hours." And he goes, "It's gas money. It's gas money." So we go, we do the thing there, we start to leave, and he loses his wallet. So we have to go back. We go back, look in the thing. It's a miracle. We find his wallet, no cash in it,
Really?
of course, no cash. But of course, now who's got to pay for the gas? Me, right? So we drive 15 hours. We get
Oh,
there
after a show. That's insane.
after a show. We get there with about 2 hours to spare. And the club was called The Other Place. Have you been there?
Shockingly, no.
Okay, because nobody's been there. That's why they call it The Other Place, because it was owned by these two women that had to be in their 80s, and there was no, there was like six light bulbs in the sign outside, so it just said like "to oh," and you couldn't even see, like. So we go in there. There's 10 people for the first show, and then we're hoping there's not going to be a second show, but there's 6 people, so we do it for them. And then the next
Attaboy.
night there's two shows which were relatively well attended. But I remember it was my first time going out and doing a, like I was supposed to do 30 minutes, right? In front of the guy. So I did, I got off and she said, "You were short." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." She goes, "You did 29 minutes and 47 seconds." And I'm like, shit. So then every night after that, I did 45 minutes, even though I didn't have 45 minutes, so that the last 15 minutes was as shitty as the first 15 minutes. And then at the end of the night, when it comes to get paid, and I remember the one woman had a cast on her arm, and she goes to us. Now, we drove 15 hours down there, and it was snowing the night we were going back.
Oh,
She goes, it really hurts me to have to pay you guys." That's what she said. And then she hands me the $300. And I said, "Well, here's $20. Go buy some light bulbs for that sign." Right?
nice.
And we left, hit a blizzard on the way back. And the other guy's like overbooks himself all the time. So he had a gig that night in,
What?
that Sunday in Jersey. And we hit it and we stopped. I said, "You got to stop. I got kids. I can't drive in this." So we pull into this truck area, and we're there, and he had a little kind of Ford Fiesta, and it's all 18 wheelers, and we're standing in the area, and the truck drivers are talking to us, and they're like, "Hey, what do you guys do?" And so I'm like, "We're comics," and my friend's like, "Yeah, we're comics. We're gonna stay for a little while, and then we're gonna drive." And the guy starts laughing. He goes, "You guys are comics if you think you're driving home in this." And that was it. 24 hours later, we got home. I slept for 3 hours and I went to work the next day. So yeah, and I probably cleared $50 for the weekend,
Yeah,
maybe,
no kidding.
maybe.
Did he ever pay you
So
back?
no, no, he never paid me back.
No way.
But what? No, he never paid me back. It was like whatever. That's one of those comics of spirits. I remember my first road gig should have been. I was at a wedding, and And the guy who ran stand up in New York called me, goes, "Hey, I got your road gig. You got to leave now." And I'm like, "I'm at a wedding." And so he goes, "You want to be a comic or don't you want to be a comic?" I go, "Okay, I'll leave." So we leave. I meet this guy and I pick him up in the city because God forbid he should meet me closer to where the gig is.
Yeah,
So I
I
pick
always
him
tell
up in
people
this
at least take a train out to the station near me.
right. So I meet him in the city, and he goes, "Hey, you mind stop if we stop and get something in the diner?" I'm like, "Yeah." Again, it's like the new comic. "Hey, I forgot my wallet. Can you pay for it?" So I paid for it. We drive to this place, White House Junction in Jersey, which is way out. And I remember Jim Florentine was the headliner, right? And
Oh God, what a good dude.
Jim
Oh,
was really nice. And So I had to do like 10 minutes and I was supposed to get $25, right? So I did 10 minutes. And then the other guy goes up and does his stuff. And he comes to me and goes, "Hey, you don't have to stick around because I got to ride back." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I was wanting to get paid, right?" And he goes, "Oh, don't worry, I'll take care of you. Whatever, right?" So I'm just like, I'll mark it down to experience. About a month later, he calls me and he goes, "Hey, man, I got you another gig." And I'm like, "Thanks. I don't think I can afford it." And it was like, that was it. I'm like, "Don't call me to take you somewhere. You never paid me for the food in the diner, whatever."
you
And
want to
it's
be a
always the
comic or
guys
what?
like, "Yeah, right." And it's like, "Do you want to be a comic or not?" But anyway, we got about 10 minutes left. So let's talk about a good thing. You just did Dry Bar. Tell me about that Dry Bar comedy series.
It kind of freaked me out in that you have to be squeaky, squeaky clean. And actually, you don't have to be squeaky, but they put these filters. So the less filters you get, the more money you, in theory, get when they on the back end when people start watching your thing, whatever. They have a whole formula for it. So I'm normally pretty clean. If I'm in a club, I'll cuss a little. If not, it's not that big a deal. But it also affects some of the stuff I do. So, but I was pretty freaked out about the squeaky clean thing. So I'm talking with the one person. They could not be any nicer out there, which I'm sure you've heard a million times.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I'm talking with the one contact, and she's like, and I said, "Hey, is it cool if I come out a day early, and just see a show, whatever?" And she's like, "Hey, yeah, no, absolutely." At that point, they had different setups, but my deal was at a certain amount of money I was getting, and they were taking care of travel. Now I think they changed it where they just raise the money and you take care of your own travel. So I'm going to go out there, and she said, "Hey, do you want to host the night before and get a few?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So I go, and the first show was incredible. I
yeah,
mean, the crowd was jacked up. I was just messing around. I'm like, "Oh man, are they recording this? I can use this when they edit down and mix it," because it was just a blast. Everyone on that show crushed. So naturally, I'm feeling really good about myself. And the second show, I totally eat it. And actually, no one does well on the second show until the last guy. And you would think, okay, it's just a tired crowd. It's one of those things. He crushes out of nowhere, and you're like, how did that happen?
yeah.
So back then, they don't do it now, but you used to shoot a lot of promo stuff that they'd stick on the beginning of your special and whatever. They aren't doing that now. But again, totally fun people, just ball busting, whatever. Um, I felt like when I actually did my first show didn't go as well as my second. But I felt like the crowd thought I was kind of mean for what they like. But it was still amazing experience. People are so nice. Just again, treat you fantastically. Like we'll get food from here's like 3 different restaurants. Pick whichever one you want. We'll go get the food, bring it back. All this stuff. So, pretty incredible experience. My special didn't really catch on, I don't think, as much as others. Now they're releasing a ton, so I don't know how many people get as much,
Hmm.
traction as the ones that did it originally. But the fun thing was, I've done a really good job of not reading comments on YouTube.
Hmm. Yeah,
But when it first came out, I didn't know it came out, and I stumbled onto it. And so I saw a couple comments. It was right before I was getting on a flight. And one was, his face looks slimy, which I'm like, that's hysterical.
oh
I'm like,
man.
oh my goodness, that's the greatest. And another one, this is my favorite one though, is I saw this later, and this lady just goes, because one of the bits that they ran a clip from was stuff about how I don't want kids. I
Hmm.
don't, and how, like looking at parenthood from a non-parent. And so this lady comments and goes, I'm glad he didn't reproduce. This other guy comments and says, "Well, I don't think if somebody doesn't want to have children, society should press them into it." Because my buddy told me, it's like, you got to read this thread. So then she's like, no, that's not what I meant. I meant whatever. And then he goes, well, we actually agree. They keep going back and forth. Finally, the guy says to the lady, we have a lot in common. I think we should meet. And
Oh
then her
wow.
response is, well, I'm married, but not happily. So I'm just like, wow, common dislike of me is I'm like disappointed Tinder. I'm
Well, yeah, it's
bringing
like
people together.
it's like them arguing about your looks is going to get this guy laid, could be nice, But
I mean, it didn't work for
anyway,
me,
maybe.
but if it works for
But
someone
hey,
else, if my looks help some other guy, I'm there for him.
yeah, you're a good guy. You're like a virtual wingman, which is nice. Um,
Well, there's my
tell
new CD title.
There you
By the
go, virtual
way, and
wingman.
I think I hammered on you this before. You should have submitted to them. Now I know obviously they're not doing specials now, but you should definitely submit and do one of those. It's such a fun experience. And the cool thing is, I asked for it and they gave me like the finished product in a separate file, so I was able
Nice.
to cut down and make like a corporate demo and stuff like that, which has actually helped me get some work. So it's
That's
definitely
great.
worthwhile,
That's great.
even if
Tell me
Mormons hate
about
you.
tell me about like TV host. It's called Cruisin', isn't it? Is that the show? Cruisin'.
Cruising,
Cruisin'.
yes.
Tell me about Cruisin'.
It's a show. It's a car show that airs. Originally, it aired on Sports Time Ohio, and then it aired, which is the Cleveland Indians network. And then they also kind of are joined now with Fox Sports Ohio, so it would air on that, and then it would air on other Fox Sports nets, and then this Revan network, which I think is in New York and New Jersey, and it's all over the country. They pick it up, and so it's funny because different Fox Sports nets would air it during rain delays sometimes and whatever. So the main guy, he'll get an email. It's like, hey, some people were watching us in San Francisco. I'm like, I'm nationwide, baby. Um, but now Fox Sports were all sold, so this other network's taking over, but it's taking forever, whatever. But anyway, we go to car shows, which I thought this is really stupid because if you've ever been to those back, you're not like the cool car show in the convention center. The car shows where everyone brings out their old cars and they put down lawn chairs and sit in front of their cars and talk.
Hmm.
I'm like, ugh, whatever. I go, it's a blast. There's so many cool, quirky stories, quirky cars that I just have a ball. And this is the most fun gig I've done because all I do is I record like an open and whatever. I'm only on camera a couple times. And then I just go and talk to people about their cars. The best part is I don't know anything about cars. Like a friend of mine who watches the show, he goes, "You are the perfect host. I love watching you because you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and it's funny." So as people are telling me about their cars, I'm just trying to bust their balls the whole time or just lead them in a weird direction, whatever. And it's just been so much fun. Yeah, I don't know if it's a fun show to watch for a non-car person because sometimes they go in these things. They're like, okay, the windshield is different in 64 than it was in 63. How fascinating. But it's pretty cool. Yeah, we've shot a couple already for this year and this network is so hard up for new shows, because everything's frozen. They're like, give us more, and I'm like,
Right.
we can't.
Yeah.
So the producers reached out, and they're having people send videos of their cars, and I'm going to record. We're going to try and do a virtual one, and just
Hmm.
anything we can do until we start shooting again. Ohio is going to open up. Right now, they're going to open up May 1st, at least partially, which I still think that's going to get pushed back.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to do because I'm down in South Carolina. If I fly to Ohio and we start shooting things, that's awesome. But then I have to rent a car to get around because it's not like, New York or New Jersey where you don't need a car. I could fly to New Jersey, grab my car, but then am I going to have to self quarantine? Am I going to be allowed to drive across Pennsylvania with Jersey plates? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the whole.
So
I don't even know what the industry's going to look like when we come out of this. But anyway, okay. So, Bill, this is what I call the Fast Five. I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and I just want you to answer them off the top of your head. Okay? We good?
now you realize Craig Kilborn did something like this.
Oh, screw Craig Kilborn.
The early days of the Daily Show.
I don't remember that because I actually was a correspondent on the early days of the
Shut up.
what do they call it? Contributing writer. Now,
Really? Oh, that
yeah,
see, that's the thing that
but
kills me.
contributing means actually they use your stuff, which I don't know. So it's a vague area. But
But this is the thing
anyway,
that kills me about you is
uh,
I like do the road or whatever, and you're like, oh, you work so much. Meanwhile, you're writing like 14 different TV shows and doing these corporate things and everything. It's like, yeah, I'm the one working. Good call.
but they're mostly a vanity press. Like I'm mostly publishing them and doing them in different rooms of my house. So, all right, first question:
All right, let's go.
if you had a stage name, what would it be?
Thor.
Thor. Thor. Okay.
No
I
one will
want you
call
to.
me that. I try to get Thor, and no one will use it.
No one will use it. Okay. Well, maybe we can start. How
Thank
about
you.
worst hack line you've ever heard or used?
I have not used this, but it's absolutely the one that I cringe immediately. Look to your left if it's not that, and look to your right if it's neither one of those people. It's you.
Okay. How about what's the difference between performing on the road and performing in the city?
At first, I thought performing in the city you had to be smarter. I'm not sure that's true. Because I've seen guys that basically do the same thing on the road that they do in the city and do great. That
Mm.
said, I think I've only done really well in the city like twice. I should probably get in the city.
I remember.
That's a horrible answer. You got one?
No, but I remember I got hired to write jokes for a hypnotist, right? Because his problem was I crush on the road, but I don't do well in the city. And I'm like, you're a freaking hypnotist. Can't you just do something about that? What do you need me for? You know? Like, so, I'm like, you're really wasting your money here, right?
You know what's so
So,
funny? I'm sorry, am I cutting you off? Could finish your story.
no, no, go ahead.
I drove when I used to work this one job. When I would drive there, I would drive right before this shopping area that I would go through. There was a psychic, and it was the house and the sign, and all that stuff. It's like crystal ball readings, all this stuff. I drive by it every day. Well, one day driving to work after a night of bad storms, there was a car out front and a tree had fallen on it, and I'm like,
Mm.
no tarot card for park out back. So that's what you reminded me of.
How about we're all self quarantine? What's going to be your first joke when you hit the stage when you come out of this?
Wow. Uh, it might be that I thought social distance, I thought isolation would be harder. I learned I'm either more resilient or have a bigger ego than I thought. Um, okay, it
For
won't be that
what's going to be
joke.
your first joke? I mean,
Well, it's not going to be that one. I think I'll do something about if you didn't handle it, look to your left. It's not that person. Look to your right. It's you. The first
uh,
thing I was thinking about, like, I'm like, it's. Do we even remember how to do this? Is like,
I
I
know.
don't even know. It's not even funny, but it's just like, it's going to be. I think it'll be fun. I think people are going to be so excited to be out. There was it's this club. There's this club in St. Augustine, Florida. It's a little bar club, and this lady's really concerned because she's an independent, club, and obviously they haven't made any money for, 6 weeks, and who knows how long it's going to go on. And she was talking about if we have to wear masks, are you guys and do social? Are you guys going to be cool with it? All these comedians are like, facial expressions are too important. I can't. I'm like, write it into your act. I mean,
Right,
it's the elephant in the room. Take it for a ride. You got to do something. You can't just come back on stage with your same set,
right, right.
you know?
And that's it because I all comics are sitting home now going, "Wow, I should really be writing
Yeah.
material." And I wonder who's actually doing it. You know. So,
Well,
all right.
the scary thing is, because my thought going in was this will be a good chance to concentrate on social media and try to do anything to get any kind of following. But like everything I've seen, Zoom and all these other virtual things from incredibly talented people I respect, I've only seen one or two funny things. And that scares the hell out of me. I'm like, these are really funny people and they're struggling, unless it's a pre recorded sketch thing, you know?
So when you say anything, you're talking about like this podcast, right?
No,
Okay.
I
Thanks,
think
Bill.
this. Well, no, I think the advantage of this for me personally is it's mostly me and I love me. So I think it's great. But you know, any of those people that have tried to do stand up in kind of a traditional form to no audience, it
Right.
just has felt incredibly awkward and like really funny people. So,
Oh, I know. Even you got like people like with a team of writers, like and they're throwing out material that's good material. It just feels awkward. It just
yeah.
feels weird.
And maybe it'll be a thing
So,
of getting used to, but we've gone on for this long and I haven't gotten used to it. And I know you're trying to get your final question out, so I'll shut up.
oh, so who do you think would be a better comic and why? Donald Trump or Nancy Pelosi,
Nancy Pelosi.
and why?
Unless you're talking unintentional funny, Nancy Pelosi's really smart. Uh,
Okay.
I don't know if she has a sense of humor, although the way she slapped back at Trump through some of the stuff has actually been kind of funny. The tearing up the speech wasn't funny, but the applause thing, come on, that's pretty good. The grandma applause. Trump's very funny unintentionally. Um,
All right. So here's the part where I ask people that I've worked with and known for a little while to give me some advice. And, it could just be one piece of advice on where I went wrong with my career. So can you just kind of summarize? I know there's a lot of things you can say. Just give me one good piece of advice so I can come out of this pandemic in better shape.
in better shape than you are now?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Stop kissing my ass. I'm not the booking company. I can't book you anywhere. Come on.
Well, you were booking one room.
I
Um,
was, yeah.
I would say, in seriousness,
Hmm.
my problem with you, aside from your personality, is I don't think I think you either sell yourself short or you just find writing TV and writing these things is more rewarding or challenging for you because you're very funny, but you don't seem to get on stage that much.
Mm.
And
Okay.
it's like, and also your style of writing is a style I can't do very much. I'm not really good at setup punch short form, and you can do short form, which is obviously great for writing for other people. It's great for writing for roast. It's great for writing for all these things. But there are comedians that do it that still do very very well, and that's. But some places it kind of defines where you fall in the lineup, whatever. But you just
Yep.
don't go on. You don't seem to perform as much as I think you should. I
Okay.
want you
Thank
on
you.
stage more so you will feel my pain.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to tear myself away from this successful podcast, Bill, but I appreciate that. Now, Bill, tell us where what's coming up next. I know we're all in this pandemic, but tell us about where they can see cruising, your website, things like that.
Website is billboronkay.com. If Boronkay is too hard to spell, Boronkay. It's also billboro.com. Losing the NKAY probably makes it easier. So I'm on there, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, same thing, the name. I have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to be more active with that I haven't. Same thing, just my name. Cruisin' is, well, it's on different networks. It's on the Revan network, which is in the Northeast, as well as other places. Also, they started, it's a year later, but we started, because things have to clear with all the copyrights crap, but also older episodes are on YouTube, just Cruisin' with a dash, because there are a bunch of cruisins. I have shows coming up that have not yet been canceled. I have this bike rally thing the 1st of June in northern, I can't remember the city, but it's northern New York. That's supposed to be beautiful. I'm hoping it's an outdoor thing. I hope it continues. I had I have like a VFW that hasn't canceled. I have some stuff in fall that is still up. May is pretty much washed out. I have
Yeah.
Uncle Vinny's if we reopen in Point Pleasant Beach, but um, yeah, I'm guessing that's a wash.
Well, I mean, hey,
There's still
looking
some stuff
ahead.
scheduled, but you're just. I think May is going to be total wiped out.
Well,
Hopefully, I'm wrong.
well, here's hoping for a better comedy future coming up for us and that things get back to normal soon. But Bill, thanks so much for doing the show. I
Oh,
really
thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it.
It's a blast. And tell Adam to be
Yeah.
quiet.
Well, guys, thank you so much for watching my mediocre career. Watch for our next show, and send us some comments on YouTube, Facebook, and things like that. Just don't send us things like "please stop." Okay. Thanks so
Something like
much.
his
And
face
we'll
is
see,
slimy.
something like that. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye, folks.